Many people look at success as if it is some sort of single event in their lives, and then afterwards they live and enjoy success. And if you think about that afterwards, living, it's a process, and enjoying success, it's a process. It's even in the grammar as we speak it. But when they sit down and dream about the idea of becoming successful, a lot of people try and really put themselves under pressure, and way too much pressure, with an ego-based thinking on, I've got to come up with an idea that is going to lead to success. The real key to actually planning for success and creating a successful lifestyle is to actually allow yourself to dream, but don't allow ego to take over. Allow creative thinking to be the tool that you use. To develop the mental tool of using creative thinking is to understand exactly what it is. If we use ego just runs away with us, and we can have wild ideas, and very often we discover that it leads to frustration. It'd be sort of blown up ideas of what we're capable of, and then when we try and put something into action, we discover that we're just frustrated, and that frustration takes us to a point in the mind where all we do is go round in circles, believing, because we have determination and persistence, but we believe that there must be a solution to our egoistic problem. Whereas really, if we actually come from the angle of creative thinking, we're using reason and logic in order to actually solve problems. Where ego leads to frustration and overwhelms us with undoable things, creative thinking actually puts us on a pathway of reasonable thinking, but yet creative and logical ideas which lead to new questions. And this is what we want in order to move forward, is questions. But those new questions can present us with small little wow moments which help us to actually create much more defined questions about the problem. And it could be in business or developing a business. It could be in personal life as well. But using creative thought in order to understand what it is you want and how you can implement it into life, how you can turn it into an action, is a much better and much more realistic way of looking at how to achieve a success. And while we learn how to be a creative thinker in life, in everyday life, we can solve business problems, we can solve our personal problems, but at the same time we're building a muscle in the mind which develops a way that we perceive our world around us, in terms of maybe I'm not asking the correct question, maybe my question's not very definite. Take some time to think about times that people ask you questions, or when you ask them questions, or if you listen to a conversation between two people. Very often somebody might ask a fairly pertinent question about a situation, such as, so what are you doing exactly about this problem? Have you got a solution? Then the person comes back and they offer some sort of idea about the actions that they're taking, the problems that they're facing, and how they're overcoming those problems. Conversation continues with questions which aren't at all effective, because they're they can quickly lead into the field of people asking, well, what's that? And why is that? And why did you do that? And things like this. And these questions, they sound great, but they're easy, and the brain goes lazy. Nothing is happening. It's just, why is that? And what's this? And why is that? They're not good questions. It's somebody gives you an answer, think of something, and come back with a question that is absolutely pertinent to what they just said. And that's how your own creative thinking should happen. When you're alone and you're thinking about what you want to do, or you don't have an idea but you want to come up with an idea, one of the greatest ways is to quite simply piece of paper, a pen, and think about a product or service that you want to sell, or think about a problem that you have artistically or creatively, and ask yourself, what connects with this? Or what doesn't connect with this, but I think through intuition or feeling that quite possibly I could find a connection if I worked hard enough at it. Creative thinking takes us to points where we discover that there is a connection. It might be a tentative connection, but it presents a question. And if we ask that question correctly, and if we do our best to answer the question, we'll come up with a better perception of what we're looking at, the connections. So creative thinking is all about making connections by firstly thinking of one object and how it might connect with another object. Creative thinking basically takes us along a path where we continue to think about the subject and the object and how they connect. Through this, we create lots of tiny connections, and some of them we eliminate as actually not correct, because it's not going to lead to what we want. And of course, in order to be successful in life, in any endeavor, it doesn't matter what it is, it can be a creative process, that is an artistic process, or it can be a business life process. That what we do is we get involved in not a single event, but rather a process of creative thinking. And that creative thinking is really the path of success. And when your creative thinking becomes an ongoing thing, and that we discover that it does solve problems that we're attempting to solve most of the time, every day, in business and private life, what we're going to discover is one day that we are already being successful. And this is what success is. It's a succession of events. And so we do have these little wow moments where we discover that's a nice step forward, and that makes me feel better. And of course, it reinforces other emotions in you, which are what you need in order to stay determined, which determination, don't forget, is about deciding upon the path that you take. Determination is not, which often is confused with grit or resilience, and resilience is what most people think of when they think of determination. And it's very important to define your own emotions. And are you a very determined person, or are you very resilient, or are you both? And then, of course, coupled with those two, what we do need is persistence. And persistence is you don't give up, you just keep going, because you do in fact have a tool, and that's the mental tool of creative thinking, which is going to help you to get to a point which you don't know what it looks like yet, but through faith in yourself, and that is that self-belief, that you will reach a point where all of your creative thought, all of your looking at a problem in terms of how does it connect to the next part, and how does it go on, how do these things create a map which I can use in order to create a path that leads to a success, which could be, how do I get customers? How do I sell a product? Where are the problems? And we discover there are problems, and you might not be good at selling, but you only discover that because you take action, and you discover through creative thinking that the main problem that you have is you're not very good at selling things, or you're not very good at marketing, or you're not very good at actually choosing a product that you can get excited about. So when we sum it up and we think about creative thinking and how it can be used as a tool in order to achieve success in life, we must always remember that success is not a single event, and it will never be like that. But yet your ego will tell you it is, because it's so wonderful to sit down and dream about things, and this is a very, very good thing to do, because it's actually, we live in a world today where the ability to fantasize about real things, about life, and to use fantasy as a way to aspire or create aspirations is being stifled unfortunately by the internet and that type of thing on there, telling us what we should think about, what we should look at, etc. You should be a person who is self-determining, and fantasy is what will get you to the point where you discover what you really want to think about, what you really want to get creative about in life. So creativity elicits a way of thinking in us that we develop, that leads to small moments of discovery. And those small moments of discovery then present us with new questions which are better defined than the very first question we had. And each time it's a step forward towards moments of success. And so these moments of success, in the end, develop into a lifestyle that we live, which is a successful lifestyle. And that way we discover that, well, we are being successful because we're putting in the effort, we're being determined, we're being persistent, and we're also being very resilient about the fact that we will encounter moments where we think, I just have no idea about this problem, how to overcome it. I don't know what the answer is. And you don't know what the answer is because you haven't yet actually encountered that moment where you suddenly realize a connection about what you should be doing, which presents you with a much better question. You'll be able to define your questioning, because it's how we live and how we think. We ask questions and we expect answers, and very often we get bad answers because we ask very lazy questions. So creative thinking is something we have to develop and build and practice, but it is the most effective way. And to avoid this egoistic thinking that allows us to dream of things and elicit feelings in us which are not the powerful, strong character emotions, but rather feelings which are fleeting, and they feel great in the moment. And you think, this is how I want it, how it is in my mind. That's how I want life. But then, you go to bed feeling all gleeful and happy, and the thought that tomorrow will come and you could begin the work on this very impossible project. And when you wake up in the morning, you realise that actually it was all very dreamy and unrealistic, and you're not quite sure how to put it into action because it's overwhelming with what you expect of yourself. Whereas the creative process of moving one step at a time is realistic, logical, and reasonable.